Nathan Carter stared at his laptop, the room silent except for the storm outside. Red numbers bled across the screen, each one slicing into his chest. He whispered, "This can't be happening." He had mortgaged his house, drained savings, and trusted voices that promised gold. A news alert flashed announcing a bank had pulled funding from $1 billion project, and Nathan's deal was caught in the collapse. His pulse quickened as betrayal's shadow rose behind the numbers. He gripped the desk, whispering again, "If this is war, I won't back down." Lightning cracked across the skyline as he clenched his jaw. His empire trembled on the edge of ruin, but a fragile spark of defiance flickered within him. Nathan Carter paced the living room, sleepless, haunted by every choice. Robert Hayes had once warned him, "The market is a beast, it devours the unprepared." Nathan thought he was ready, but the storm proved otherwise. Emily Carter sat quietly on the couch, her silence louder than words. The weight of her trust pressed harder than the numbers on the screen. The ticking clock grew louder with each second. Nathan muttered, "I can't let them see me fail." His empire could collapse before dawn, yet a fragile ember of defiance glowed inside him. The night was dark, but his resolve began to ignite. Morning light crept through blinds as Nathan Carter sat at the kitchen table. Coffee steamed untouched while foreclosure papers lay spread before him. Emily Carter's voice broke the silence, brittle and heavy. "Nathan, tell me it's not over." His throat dry, Nathan whispered, "It's worse than we feared." Trust cracked between them like glass under strain. Emily's hands shook as she reached for the papers, eyes welling. Nathan forced his spine straight, whispering, "I'll fix this." The morning sun was bright, but their home was shadowed in dread. Nathan Carter walked into the skyscraper lobby that day, whispers following him like shadows. Colleagues glanced with pity and fear, each face a reminder of collapse. Daniel Brooks approached and murmured, "We've been hit harder than anyone knows." Nathan's jaw tightened as he entered the elevator. Mirrored walls reflected not power, but fragility. Each rising floor felt like pressure pressing against his chest. Determination sharpened inside him, but dread grew with it. He was a man balanced on the edge of ruin. In his office, Nathan Carter stood before floor-to-ceiling windows. The skyline that once symbolized opportunity now looked like a battlefield. His phone buzzed with a message from Victoria Clark. "We need to talk. Today." Nathan muttered, "She knows." Victoria was not a woman of patience. If she withdrew, his empire would collapse instantly. Nathan pressed his palm against the glass and whispered, "I won't go down without a fight." The war had only just begun. Nathan Carter's rise began in the shadows of failure. Years earlier, he worked as a real estate assistant, driving across town to meet clients no one else wanted. He carried folders in a battered car, whispering, "One day, I'll own deals like these." His father's voice lingered, stern yet proud, "Don't wait for opportunity, build it." Nathan had lost his father too soon, but the lesson stayed. Every setback was carved into his skin, shaping him into a man who refused defeat. Emily Carter believed in him from the beginning, even when friends laughed at his dream. The apartment was small, the rent late, but Nathan's will was iron. That fire, born in struggle, still burned beneath the panic of the present. His story was not about easy victories. It was about scars that became fuel for tomorrow. Nathan Carter sat at his dining table, remembering the first time Emily Carter told him she believed in his vision. She had said, "Nathan, I don't care if we eat noodles for a year, I know you'll make it." That promise was his lifeline when banks rejected him. Robert Hayes had warned him, "The system is rigged against dreamers." Robert spoke from bitter experience, a man broken by past deals. Nathan didn't deny the truth, but he believed grit could bend rules. That belief pulled him forward, step by painful step. Now, staring at Emily's quiet strength, Nathan realized his fight was not only for survival. It was for the faith Emily had carried for years. the faith that kept him upright when walls caved in. Robert Hayes entered Nathan Carter's life when he was young and reckless. Robert was once a legend in real estate, a man who lost millions in a single misstep. He had told Nathan, "You're chasing fire, son. It will burn you unless you learn control." Nathan admired him and even feared him. Robert's face carried the weight of loss, yet his words cut sharp like steel. He had fallen from grace, but his wisdom was undeniable. Nathan remembered late nights in Robert's cluttered study, learning about contracts, hidden clauses, and predators who ruled the market. Robert Hayes became both a cautionary tale and a reluctant mentor. His lessons returned now, whispering in Nathan's mind like echoes from another life. Daniel Brooks was more than a colleague to Nathan Carter. He was the anchor when doubt threatened to crush him. Daniel often said, "Stay grounded, no deal is worth your soul." Years earlier, Daniel had walked away from a lucrative contract because it would have ruined dozens of families. That act of integrity made him both respected and feared. Nathan trusted him more than anyone in the office. Yet even Daniel's eyes now carried unease, as if the storm ahead was bigger than either of them could control. Their partnership was built on shared scars and unspoken trust. If Daniel faltered, Nathan feared the entire foundation of his world would collapse. Victoria Clark entered Nathan Carter's story as both savior and threat. She was sharp, elegant, and ruthless, her eyes always seeing profit before people. At their first meeting, she leaned across a polished table and said, "I believe in your vision, but belief comes with terms." Her words were velvet laced with steel. Nathan felt awe and unease in equal measure. Victoria had rescued projects others deemed impossible, but she never gave without demanding more. For Nathan, her support was oxygen and poison combined. The message flashing on his phone was a reminder that her patience was thin as glass. She could lift him higher or cut him down without hesitation. Nathan Carter sat in his office, surrounded by silence that pressed against his chest. His phone rang, and Daniel Brooks walked in at the same moment. Daniel said, "The lenders want answers, Nathan. They're circling." Nathan tightened his jaw, his hand gripping the armrest of his chair. "I'll give them answers when I have them," he muttered. Emily Carter had texted earlier, pleading with him not to hide the truth. Every corner of his world was closing in. He felt betrayal lurking like a shadow in his circle. Someone was feeding information to competitors, and the deal he had fought for was bleeding out. His empire wasn't crumbling quietly, it was being pulled apart piece by piece. Nathan Carter confronted Daniel Brooks later that evening. "Who knew about the refinancing talks?" Nathan demanded. Daniel raised his hands, frustration written on his face. "I've been with you every step. If there's a leak, it's not me." Nathan's suspicion clashed with trust. His pulse raced as he scanned Daniel's eyes for cracks. The betrayal had to come from somewhere, and every delay tightened the noose. Emily Carter called again, her voice trembling. "Nathan, tell me we're not losing everything." He whispered, "Not yet." He turned back to Daniel, weary but unyielding. The war inside his circle had begun. Victoria Clark called Nathan Carter to her glass-walled office the next morning. She leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You promised stability, Nathan. My capital is not a charity." He kept his voice steady. "I need time." Victoria smirked coldly. "Time is the one thing you don't have." Her words pierced deeper than numbers. Nathan knew Victoria could end him with a single decision. The walls gleamed with luxury, yet to him they felt like prison bars. Sweat prickled at his neck as he whispered, "Pull out now and you'll regret it." For the first time, fear flashed in Victoria's eyes, but it was quickly buried under steel. Later that night, Nathan Carter returned home to find Emily Carter waiting in the living room. Her arms were crossed, her voice breaking. "You promised you'd tell me everything." Nathan lowered his head, whispering, "I didn't want you to carry this weight." Emily's eyes welled as she whispered, "We're already carrying it." He sat beside her, but the distance between them felt like an ocean. His empire's collapse was more than numbers. It was unraveling trust, home, and love. Nathan pressed her hand and whispered, "I'll fight for us." But Emily pulled away, leaving his promise floating like smoke in the dark. Robert Hayes visited Nathan Carter late that week, his steps heavy, his face etched with years of loss. He said, "I told you, Nathan, the system eats the weak." Nathan clenched his fists, anger rising. "I'm not weak. I'll find a way." Robert sighed, shaking his head. "Strength isn't enough. Ruthlessness is." Nathan saw his mentor's broken legacy in those words. Robert had been swallowed by the same hunger, and now he urged Nathan to follow. Nathan's heart pounded. The choice was clear: sacrifice his soul to survive, or fight against the tide with everything at risk. His silence was his answer. Nathan Carter stormed into his office, documents in hand, his heart pounding. Daniel Brooks was already waiting, worry carved into his face. Nathan slammed the papers down. "This deal was sabotaged from inside. Tell me why Victoria Clark knew before we did." Daniel's eyes widened and he stammered, "Nathan, I swear I didn't tell her." The realization struck Nathan. His greatest fear was true. Betrayal was not a rumor. It was fact. He looked out over the skyline, whispering, "Someone close is tearing this apart." His empire was bleeding from a wound cut by familiar hands. Victoria Clark summoned Nathan Carter to her boardroom. She leaned back in her chair, her voice calm but sharp as glass. "I know your numbers, Nathan. Someone close to you is feeding me everything." Nathan clenched his jaw, anger and fear twisting together. "Why would you tell me this?" Victoria smirked. "Because knowledge is power, and I hold all of it." Her words sliced like knives. Nathan realized she wasn't just testing him, she was declaring war. He left the room, her cold smile burning in his mind. Betrayal had a name, and it hid in his circle. Emily Carter found Nathan late that night, his hands shaking over a pile of contracts. "What's happening?" she asked, voice trembling. Nathan whispered, "Someone is leaking everything. We're being stripped bare." Emily's eyes welled as she gripped his hand. "Then fight back. Don't let them win." Nathan met her gaze, exhaustion burning behind determination. Her faith had never wavered, even as cracks widened. He drew strength from her words, whispering, "If betrayal is close, I'll expose it." For the first time in days, Nathan felt fire return. The war was personal now. Robert Hayes arrived at Nathan Carter's office, his voice heavy with warning. "You think betrayal is rare? It's the rule." Nathan glared. "Do you know something?" Robert hesitated, then said, "Victoria isn't your only enemy. Someone inside your house is handing them your future." Nathan froze, shock cutting deeper than fear. Robert's words carried weight, but his eyes carried guilt. Nathan realized Robert knew more than he was admitting. The floor beneath him shifted. The enemy was not just across the table, it was beside him. Nathan Carter confronted Daniel Brooks one last time, his voice breaking. "Tell me you didn't sell me out." Daniel's eyes filled with pain. "I didn't, Nathan, but someone close did. You need to look at Emily." The words hit harder than thunder. Nathan staggered back, disbelief flooding his chest. Emily Carter, the one anchor in his storm, now cast in shadow. His world cracked open, betrayal seeping into every corner. He whispered, "No, not her." But doubt coiled like poison. The revelation had landed, and nothing would ever be the same. Nathan Carter stood in the boardroom facing Victoria Clark, his voice shaking but steady. "You think you own me, but I won't be broken." Victoria leaned back, smiling coldly. "You're already broken, Nathan. The numbers don't lie." Daniel Brooks sat silently in the corner, torn between loyalty and doubt. The tension felt like glass ready to shatter. Nathan slammed the table, his hand trembling with rage. "I built this from nothing. I'll risk it all before I hand it to you." Victoria's smile faded, replaced by a flicker of surprise. The battle line was drawn, and the room burned with war. Nathan Carter paced his office late that night, contracts scattered across the floor. Emily Carter entered quietly, her voice breaking. "Tell me it isn't true. Tell me I wasn't the one they used against you." Nathan froze, his heart twisting. "Emily, I never doubted you." She stepped closer, tears streaming, whispering, "Then fight for us. Don't let their poison win." Nathan pulled her close, his hands shaking. For the first time in days, his armor cracked, and he allowed her strength to hold him. The war was outside, but tonight, his heart found its anchor again. Robert Hayes returned, his voice heavy with warning. "If you gamble everything, you could lose it all." Nathan Carter stared at him, eyes fierce. "If I don't gamble, I lose anyway." Robert shook his head, his own failures etched into every wrinkle. "I lost because I became what they wanted. Don't repeat me." Nathan stood tall, fists clenched. "Then I'll do it my way." For the first time, Robert saw fire that reminded him of his younger self. He muttered, "God help you, Nathan." The air thickened with dread and destiny. The morning sun rose as Nathan Carter walked into the conference hall. Investors gathered like vultures. Victoria Clark stood at the head, ready to dismantle him. Nathan's voice thundered, "You all doubt me, but today I doubled down." Gasps filled the hall as he unveiled a bold counterdeal, leveraging assets hidden deep in contracts no one expected. Victoria's eyes narrowed, fury replacing control. Daniel Brooks whispered under his breath, "He might actually pull it off." For the first time, Nathan saw fear in his enemy's eyes. The gamble was enormous, but so was the fire inside him. The final moment crashed like thunder. Nathan Carter stared across the boardroom table at Victoria Clark. Contract signed, his gamble sealed. She hissed, "If this fails, you're finished." Nathan leaned forward, eyes burning. "If it fails, I fall. But if it works, I rise higher than you ever dreamed." Emily Carter stood in the doorway, silent strength radiating. Daniel Brooks looked on, torn but hopeful. Robert Hayes watched with weary pride. The air trembled with silence before the storm. Nathan's empire balanced on the edge of triumph and ruin, every breath carrying the weight of destiny. Nathan Carter sat in silence at dawn, staring at the signed contracts stacked neatly on his desk. His gamble had gone through, but the weight of it crushed his chest. Emily Carter entered softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it, Nathan." His eyes were tired, hollow, yet burning with faint hope. "I did something," he whispered. Outside, the city stirred awake, unaware of the storm he had survived. The empire wasn't secure yet, but for the first time in weeks, Nathan felt a breath of calm. The war had scarred him, but it hadn't ended him. Victoria Clark sat in her own office, her glass of wine untouched. For once, her expression cracked as she stared out over the skyline. She muttered. He turned it around. Nathan Carter had outplayed her, if only by inches. The balance of power had shifted, and for the first time, she wasn't in control. Her reflection in the window looked older, sharper, and tired. Behind every victory was a cost, and Victoria felt the sting. The war wasn't over, but Nathan had won a round she thought impossible. Daniel Brooks visited Nathan Carter the next day. His eyes were heavy, his tone quiet. "You saved it, but don't think trust will come easy now." Nathan nodded, the words striking harder than victory. "I know. Betrayal doesn't heal fast." Their friendship was scarred, not broken, yet fragile as glass. Daniel sighed. "I stood with you because I believed. Don't waste it again." Nathan's reply was a simple nod, his chest tight with guilt. Saving his empire had cost him faith. And faith was harder to rebuild than money. Robert Hayes arrived at Nathan Carter's office, carrying the weight of old lessons. "You survived," Robert said, "but don't mistake survival for victory." Nathan looked at him, voice steady but cold. "I'm not you, Robert. I won't lose my soul in the process." Robert's lips tightened, but his eyes softened with weary pride. He saw the fire he had lost long ago still alive in Nathan. "Maybe you'll be the one who proves me wrong," Robert muttered. For the first time, Robert felt the faint shadow of redemption, not for himself, but through Nathan. That evening, Nathan Carter stood with Emily Carter on their balcony, overlooking the city. The storm clouds had cleared, replaced by quiet skies glowing with twilight. Emily whispered, "We still have each other. That's what matters." Nathan wrapped his arm around her, his voice low. "I almost lost everything, but I won't lose us." For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a small smile. The war had left scars, but together, they could endure them. The city lights flickered like fragile hope, uncertain, yet alive. Nathan Carter stood at the top floor of his office tower, as dusk settled across the skyline. The city below pulsed with life, unaware of the war fought in shadows above it. His empire was still fragile, his accounts stretched, but the deal had held. For the first time, the possibility of stability breathed through the cracks. Emily Carter joined him, her quiet presence steadying his nerves. She whispered, "You fought like hell, Nathan, and you're still standing." He nodded, though his jaw remained tight. "Standing doesn't mean safe." His eyes traced the glowing streets, remembering how close ruin had come. The betrayal, the fights, and the gamble replayed in his mind like an endless reel. Each scar was carved deep, but each scar was proof he endured. Daniel Brooks had returned his loyalty, but their trust would never be the same. Robert Hayes had given warnings that still echoed, yet Nathan had chosen differently. Victoria Clark was still out there watching, waiting, her smirk lingering in his memory, like an unfinished battle. Nathan's voice was low, almost to himself. "I've won a round, not a war." Emily slipped her hand into his, her grip firm, her voice quiet. "Then, we'll fight the next one together." The city lights flickered like fragile promises, painting the night with fire and uncertainty. The next morning, Nathan Carter faced a room of investors who expected collapse. He stood at the podium, papers in hand, every heartbeat loud in his ears. His voice was strong, though fatigue etched into his features. "You came here expecting failure," he said, "but I came here to prove survival." Gasps stirred as he unveiled the contracts that secured his future, his counterdeal burning through every doubt. Victoria Clark sat in the back row, her face unreadable, eyes sharp as knives. For the first time, Nathan felt the balance tilt. He wasn't begging, he was dictating. "This isn't luck," he continued. "It's blood, scars, and fight. And if you're with me, you'll see profit beyond imagination." Silence filled the air before applause erupted, hesitant at first, then rising like thunder. Victoria stood abruptly, her heels clicking against marble, leaving without a word. Nathan's chest rose and fell as he gripped the podium. He had held his ground in the lion's den. Yet as the cheers grew louder, he whispered only to himself, "Victory is never free." That night, Nathan Carter walked alone through the city streets, the neon lights reflecting on wet pavement from a passing rain. The empire had survived, but the cost echoed in his every step. He remembered Emily's tears, Daniel's fractured loyalty, Robert's warnings, and Victoria's cold power. The battle was won, but the war was never over. His phone buzzed, a new message glowing in the dark. "We, not finished. V." Nathan stopped, staring at the screen, his breath clouding in the cold night. His chest tightened, yet his eyes hardened with resolve. He whispered, "Neither am I." The city roared around him, cars rushing, voices rising, life moving forward. Nathan felt both alone and invincible. He had gambled everything, survived betrayal, and tasted victory. Yet he knew the next storm was already forming. His story wasn't of easy riches. It was of scars carved deep into flesh and spirit. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, lifted his chin, and stepped into the crowd, a man marked but unbroken. Back home, Emily Carter waited on the balcony, the city stretching behind her like a canvas of light. Nathan Carter stepped out quietly, his face carrying exhaustion and defiance. Emily whispered, "Will it ever be over?" Nathan slipped his arm around her, his eyes fixed on the skyline. "Wars like this never end, We just fight until we can't." Emily leaned against him, her silence louder than any words. They stood in the night breeze, two figures bound together by scars and survival. For Nathan, the view was no longer a battlefield, but a reminder that some victories were shared, not won alone. In the quiet of his office, Nathan Carter sat alone one final time. The signed contracts, the glowing city, the faint echo of applause, all faded into silence. He whispered, "2 million bought me more than wealth. It bought me scars." His reflection in the glass window looked older, heavier, but not defeated. He had survived betrayal, gambled everything, and carried the cost. Emily Carter's voice echoed in memory, "We still have each other." Nathan closed his eyes, letting the truth anchor him. His story wasn't about riches, but about the price of survival. He stood, straightened his jacket and whispered once more, "I'm not done." The skyline shimmered with fragile light, a reminder that victory always came at a cost.